what can you do? They put out a good recruitment.
Yeah, I'm trying to find out whether I'm in or not. I got a picture of Bob Neff's kids. That's it. Grandkids.
Okay, Joe, you should be in.
He gave pictures of his kids to all of us.
Anybody copy that?
Yes, okay, so we're calling meeting to order.
You're in, Joe. Don't worry.
There? Okay. As long as I know I'm there.
Quana's gonna be with Rocky.
Oh, Quanah.
Okay. Okay.
I'll stay with her.
Okay.
Oh, that's a while. Got a lot of interesting kitty cats. Come on, come on. Come over here between Rocky and you.
Oh, I got all kinds of dog gummies in my backseat.
Oh, that's right. She doesn't eat dog gifts.
Oh.
Against the rules.
Hi, baby. How are you?
Okay, is everyone set? We'll get started?
Yep.
Okay, so our first, what's that?
We're not done?
No. Okay, John, HR,
Come on.
table if you want.
Okay.
Oh,
Mommy's
forget it. She's
calling.
not-
Maybe so they can hear you in the mic. Okay, we'll start with, it's mislabeled on
Are you
the.
gonna babysit?
Mommy's calling.
You got it labeled?
Come on, John, come on. Tell us, come on.
They have to hear you on the microphone.
Okay, so we'll start with, human resource.
Oh, I know.
Thank you.
Hey, John, it's all yours.
Okay, all set?
Yep.
Okay, great. Good evening, everybody, and for those new here this evening, I'm John Waller. I'm the Director of Human Resources for the Borough, as well as the Board of Education. Tonight, I'm going to be presenting the budget for the Borough Human Resources. And primarily, my budget is driven by contractual services. That's basically driven by the borough's EAP program for our employees, as well as pre-employment testing and drug testing. Drug testing being our random program for police, fire, and DPW, and other drug testing related to pre-employment hires. And the pre-employment test being pre-employment physicals for those employees that we hire also. The bulk of the contractual services is associated this year and in most years associated with the fire department oral and written exams. And this year, we are anticipating the need for 4 promotional tests due to retirements anticipated in the middle of the fiscal year. 1 test for a captain's position, a test for lieutenant's position, a test for assistant mechanic. And I also put in another round of entry-level testing. So in all, that line item in itself, it comes to just north of $40,000. So overall, my budget is about a little north of $13,000 more than last year. And that is driven primarily by the 1 additional promotional test that we're anticipating. If I didn't have that additional promotional test, I would be coming in with a budget of about $241 less than last year. That basically rounds out the highlights of my budget this year at $103,044. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Okay. Okay, so for any of the newer members on finance, John's position is shared between the borough and the Board of Education. So both all salary and staffing is on Board of Ed side.
All salary.
Yeah, for your position.
But the salary of the borough kicks in a portion,
Portion, okay.
small portion.
Very small portion. Okay,
My salary.
just want to make sure people knew that was split between.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, good. Any other questions for John? Anyone online? No? Okay, John. no,
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.
You too, Justin. Administrative.
You want to do administrative or do you want me to?
If I have a choice, I won't choose to.
Okay. So the administrative budget this year has no changes.
Primarily the mayor's office, sir.
Actually, there's a slight uptick in the personnel because of we're going from 1 extra day to 2 extra days. Okay,
That's a little covered. for-
that's it.
It's pretty much flat. Any questions on the administrative side, administrative budget? Here, okay.
No increases in salaries or,
And they're still under negotiation.
so is that somewhere else on the budget or?
It will be in wage increases when we come around to that one.
Gotcha. Yeah, union and non-union wage increases.
Correct.
Legal department.
There's no changes in the legal department at all.
Just gonna comment, okay?
Yes, sir.
So last year we budgeted a larger amount for appraisals. I know we spent more than what it shows we spent, 2,000, because I know we've had 2 very large ones, so that number's not right. But I'm gonna recommend that we keep it at 70, even though we're gonna need more, because the money that we didn't spend in this year will be carried over to make up the difference. So I'm recommending we keep it at the same number, knowing that we've got money left over from this year that we haven't spent yet.
Any questions on legals? Thank you. Pete.
Actually, I do, just
Okay.
real quick question. Mayor, when does that really hit the budget? Because revale is just going through, will it hit this year or will it hit next fiscal year?
Well, so here's the deal, it'll start this year, but if there's a challenge in court, and there will be challenges.
Right.
And the ones we anticipate will be some of the more big ticket items. It could be more than a year before we need the appraisal.
Okay.
So I think if we keep the number the same, and if we, in other words, I would say this year, we're probably gonna spend some of the money we anticipated we spent last year. And then we'll probably spend some this year. I think the year after is when it'll hit, but we can, as long as we, don't transfer the money somewhere else, we should be all right.
That's what I thought. That's kind of what I thought. I just want to make sure. Thank you.
Okay. Settlement legal claims.
I'm keeping the budget the same as last year. It's a kind of a contingent thing in case we have.
Yeah, so 99.9% of our claims are covered by insurance. Every now and then, there's a very small gray area that we sometimes deal with rather than fight about it.
Okay. Flat at 10,000. Okay. Any other questions on settlement of legal claims? Next, elderly program.
So the idea there is that we would keep it, but not utilize the people for the town hall, but utilize them at the senior center where, I'm gonna say the town hall will keep track of the money, but, we think that Harvey could use some help, and I think that, some of those senior citizens would be more helpful at the senior center than in an office in the town hall. So, I'd like to try out that method for a year and see how it works. There will, there are people asking about the program already. People who under reval are elderly and may need some help. So I'd like to keep the program, but I think we'd get a better use of the manpower or woman power by putting them at the senior
I'm
center.
sure Harvey would appreciate the help.
I didn't tell him
Oh,
that.
you don't?
I was saying, so the people that volunteer there, would some of them would end up getting paid?
Well, they do get paid.
They don't volunteer, they get paid.
That's what the $7,200 is.
Oh,
So this is the item that we've had many prior discussions
Oh,
about
yeah.
in past years. Some quite lengthy, and over the years, we've reduced the amount in this category, number one, and we've also tightened the rules. And there's a pretty detailed procedure to apply where it's really first come, first served. So we advertise it and, encourage people to apply. And usually we get more applicants than there are slots. And then we take it on a first come, first served basis.
Mayor, I thought this was a credit towards their taxes, that they don't actually get paid.
Allison?
It is.
It is, okay, okay,
Yes,
I thought
it
so.
is.
Okay, when you confused me when you said they get paid, that's
Well,
all.
they do, they get credit, they get monetary credit.
Yes, yeah, okay, just want to make sure, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on Dunwoody program? Okay, Louise, you're up, tax department, our favorite department of all.
Well, you're gonna be happy.
Assessors is right after.
So Kate's wrong.
Just as
Well,
good.
that was my sarcasm.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So if you don't
Sorry,
know
Ken,
me,
I
I'm
was-
Lee Sheedy, the assistant tax collector. I'm going to tax tonight. So actually, we dropped $1,000 in the postage, and we added $400 to the printing. And they were quotes that we got from QBS. We asked for a $1 increase for our summer girl because this is the last year where the minimum wage goes up $1. And she's senior this year and we'll be moving on after that, but well worth the money. And the reason why it's $366 more, which I thought it was less, is the 2 extra days for the 2 girls in the office then. And I guess I'm probably in there too. So it's the 2 extra days of, so it's pretty easy budget and that's it.
Okay. Any questions for the tax department?
There's a lot of new members. Should she explain the summer help and when that's done?
That's a good idea,
I'd
Diane.
love to, yeah.
Yeah.
Please do it.
So our busiest time, obviously, is from probably the end of May through the middle of August, when we finish getting our mail. In the tax office, the permanent people that work there, only if you're at Buckmiller, St. Mary's, or Waterbury Hospital can you take a day off in July. So there's no vacations in July for any of us, or it never has been. So we need our vacations in August, and that's like why we like to keep the girl through August. And they usually go back, she's an RA, so she usually goes back a little bit early and she goes back near the end of August. But it allows us to take a week off in August, so we have a vacation. She does everything. She handles money, she collects, she is the extra one that collects. She does lunches, she leaves at lunches. In the back, she's helping me with all the mail, processing it and getting it through, and phones, and invaluable. And we've always gotten probably, the kids, they're great. I can't say enough about the kids that we've always gotten. They always stay for the 4 years. And we appreciate everything they do for us. And you tell them once and they're so good that, and they'll do anything. They'll help us, anybody that they have to, but we can't leave them, out of the office. I just can't tell you how valuable she is because they're great. She is gonna be teaching next year. The girl that we have, her mother's a principal in the local school system, and she's a senior this year and is gonna go for the next year. And she's just been great for the 4 years that we've had her. She makes $1 over minimum, and she's there all summer long. So, you know, we really need her.
And this is her last summer with you?
This is the last time, but we have another one that we're thinking that we're gonna try to train, and hopefully, he's very good too. So, he's in the honors program out at Easter, it's his first year, so we're hoping that he'll come. And, you know, it's a great job, you don't have to work weekends, you're off on Friday, you know, and, it's just, they don't make a whole lot of money, so they have to come from a family that, you know, and they have to be bright.
Okay.
But anyways, yes, please leave her in the budget, because we really need her.
Okay, thanks, Lisa.
I know there's always talk about, do you really need her? We really need her.
No, it wasn't for that reason. I just wanted, like I said, there's so many new people that I thought it would be good for you to explain it.
Thank you,
So the rumors don't go flying.
thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you, Lisa. Okay, Shelby, Dr. Assessor.
Shelby,
I think yeah.
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
Good, okay. So, it's my second budget, so, I learned a few lessons from last year. And, so, starting to get a real good handle on what we're gonna do. I just want to remind the board of an important factor. We generate revenue in our office. So much of the revenue that the town spends, not all of it, but a good portion of it comes through our office. By the way, we assess property on an annual basis, maintain records by going out, visiting properties, and picking up building permits and so forth and so on. So it's important that we have certain resources in order to do that job effectively. Now, I've identified a few areas where I think we need to really bolster our ability to do that, and that's really in subscriptions. I increased our budget for. Let me see. Well, it doesn't show up in subscriptions. It shows up. Allison, you're going to have to help me out with this, but because I do things a little bit differently.
Sorry, Shelby.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so Shelby's overall budget is down $12,000. That's the punchline.
Yes, that's right.
Well, we're down because, had a revaluation and it was up by quite a bit. So now we're dialing back down. I anticipate that this year, the Board of Assessment Appeals will be very busy. Next year, I think it will be busy too, but we just don't know exactly what the impact will be. We have to make our best estimate and go forward with that. But what I wanted to point out, and a couple of things under the subscriptions, and I don't see that here, Allison, on the budget line item. We need some resources in order to really effectively defend ourselves against appeals that are going to come. There's going to be a lot of tax appeals that we're going to be facing. I need access to subscriptions like ConComps, which is a subscription that allows us to access commercial property sales. Marshall Swift valuation, which is a subscription that the town used to have, I guess, back in the day, but let it go over time. We really need that. And then we rely very heavily on the multiple listing service. That's something that we look at all the time. And we're able to glean a lot of information. You'd be surprised how much information you get off subscriptions. And then, of
Shelby,
course,
can you speak up a little bit? I'm having trouble hearing you over Zoom.
oh, I'm sorry, Jen. I apologize. What did you miss?
The last minute and a half or so.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is that, for subscriptions, we're asking for more support. Several areas. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
I can
Can
stand
you
up.
hear me now? It's not a Verizon commercial. Go ahead, just speak up.
Yeah, so I guess that's really all I had to say was that, I'm asking for more support on the subscriptions because we're trying to, and I appreciate support I've gotten from the mayor and Allison, trying to make the office a very professionally run office. And in order to do that, we need to access information that is going to make us do our job, allow us to do our job a lot more effectively in the future. This year, we're going to face many tax appeals. And I suspect that next year, there will be, several more coming as well. And that's not unusual following the reevaluation. So the budget is down, but it's down because the reval is over. And that expense is going away. So I want to be straight up about that. But I also want to tell you that in order to continue to do our job properly, we're going to need some help. The overtime, I want to hit on overtime, because I know in the past that overtime was let go. I absolutely have to have an overtime budget because, we follow tax collector's office during their peak periods when the tax bills go out. We also have the same issues that they do. However, leading up to those periods of time, those peak workload periods, we're working on deadlines. We're working on getting information and accounts processed properly. So I absolutely need that flexibility in order to operate, and I like to say in a nimble way. You want to be flexible, you want to be nimble, you want to be lean and mean. But in order to do that, we have to have that support. And then the rest of the budget really is very straightforward. There's really I think we're asking for a little bit more on the supplies because that's what history has shown us, that we need a little bit extra in order to keep up with things. And other than that, I'll take questions.
Hey, Joe, I just have two questions for you quickly. On the pictometry, is that a multi-year contract?
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, the pictometry, that's a multi-year contract. What year are we in on that?
So right now we're in a down year. That every 2 years, traditionally, we do an aerial flight. Where they take aerial photographs and they update all of our information in our geographic database. So that's $28,500 budget item. It's going to come due not this year, the year after this year.
And then the last one, I noticed was quite a bit of discussion last year on Savoy investigations. They're working out well for you?
It's working out. I mean, I think it's a valuable program. I think at some point it may, it may have outlived its lifespan in terms of we've picked up so many people in terms of out-of-state registrations. The word is out there that, we're looking at this. So I think we definitely need an annual budget for that. However, I'm just not convinced that we need to keep the same annual budget going forward. Now, I know last year we decided we'd have 50,000 with an additional 50,000 if necessary. I'm not aware that we've gone into that secondary $50,000 expenditure. So,
Shelby, it's Rocky. I have a question. Do the cost for Marshall and Swift, is that strictly for the licensing and we use the program?
that is, well, the licensing, that's a little bit more expensive. Rocky, what I'm proposing, it's $675 a year. It's actually a written manual. And it covers cost estimates for all types of commercial residential properties. So
Yeah, I'm very familiar with it. I used it in my business world, along with Means and National Construction Estimator and other ones. But You do it manually you don't do it on the computer or electronically?
There is an option to do it on the computer on a case-by-case basis. That is something that, we could look at, but what I was proposing here was an annual subscription to their written manual, which is $675. So, I mean, it's something that the town has not done over the last several years. And I think we really should, particularly now facing, potential property tax appeals. And I'm going to need access to that type of information.
So that's in addition to the computer program?
No, I do not have a computer program for,
Okay, I thought you just said you did. You use it occasionally.
I don't think I said that. If I did, please excuse me, because no, I do not have Marshall Swift at all. We have not had it at all. But I'd love to have access to it because it's a valuable resource.
I agree, it's a very good tool, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions for Shelby?
Yeah, please, Shelby. I want to know, with the reevaluation notices going out, what is the burden on your office at this point with that?
Buried. I mean, we're buried, but we're, listen, when I go in the mayor's office, there's a sign that says, no whining, no complaining. And I totally agree with that. So we will get the job done and we will treat our residents with respect, courtesy, and we will provide a process, to review everyone's count. And, but this month is going to be, an all out, all hands on deck. I hate to coin a phrase or use a cliche like that, but the last several months have been very,
So Shelby, I'm trying to understand the process. They come to you first, then they go to the tax board of appeals, then they go to court. Is that correct?
That is correct. However, I try to have an open door policy so that they can come and speak to our staff, your staff. And if we find that there's a justifiable reason to make a change, we can identify that. We'll handle that administratively. We don't just automatically send everything to the Board of Appeals. Having said that, what does get sent to the Board of Appeals, we work with that board. We work with that board and we try to, again, review everything. Because if there's a justifiable reason to make an adjustment, we'll do that. We're not trying to just it's not an adversarial situation. However, there will be disagreements. When there are, board will rule on it. After that, their final adjudication is through the Superior Court. Correct.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Let me interject one thing. And I know you do this, but I want to be clear that anyone who wants to have a private meeting with the assessor's office and they have information they want to bring in and go over, they can make an appointment informally before it goes into the more formal process. So I want that clear to the public that they can come in and talk about things. And if they can convince staff that there's an error, it can be fixed without going to the Board of Assessment of Appeals. If there's a disagreement, then it goes to the Board of Assessment Appeals. And if it's not resolved there, then it goes to court. But there are quite a few opportunities for people to have, I'll say, an informal review in the tax assessor's office.
Well, that's correct, Mayor, and we encourage people because we want to resolve things at the lowest possible level, the most informal level. That's what we're here for. that's what we're paid to do, is to, you know, to review these situations. Give everybody an opportunity. And, you know, I've learned over time, so many people just, they're so busy in their own profession and their own lifestyle. They do not understand how property taxes work, or maybe they don't understand it fully. So many times when they come and talk to us, we can resolve it just by explaining the process. We can resolve it just by asking a few questions, reviewing their account, going over things. So yes, the informal process is the first step there is. And that's with me, the assessor, my staff, our staff, your staff. And, you know, if it has to go to the Board of Appeals, that means that we reviewed it and we couldn't come to you know, a resolution. So, you know, we encourage everyone to come in and talk to us. And even after this year, I mean, again, next year, there may be more people. They'll get their tax bill in July, and then all of a sudden they'll realize, wait a minute, this doesn't look right. They'll want to come and talk to us. So we're there. We're prepared to review their account.
Good, Diane.
Yeah, Shelby, I'm just wondering, your overtime is down 11,000 and Board of Assessment Appeals is down 2,000. But won't you need, aren't there going to be appeals, and won't you need overtime to cover those appeals?
Well, thank you for that question. We tried to anticipate, you know, what things would be, and it's really, it's a moving target. So this year, following the revaluation, we thought that this would be the, you know, the most demanding time for us. So, you know, last year I put in what I thought, and I calculated it based upon a number of days, and a number of meetings, and, you know, we had a mathematical calculation that we based it on. This year, for next year, when I say this year, next year's budget, I think it's going to be less.
Okay.
So we're making our best guesstimate. And I think we're going to be okay with those numbers. And if not, I'll have to come back and I'll have to ask Allison or the mayor to, you know, to help me out if we get in trouble. But I think we're going to be fine with those based on my experience.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Shelby? Comments? Okay, thank you, Shelby.
Thank you.
Matt, you're up. Elections.
Louise and I are.
Okay.
Okay. So yes, who voted for early voting last November?
Not me.
This is the result of that, but.
Not me.
That vote. So this is the result of that vote. Yes, we are up $196,000 this year, 1.5 times from last year. As you can see, most of that is in early voting. None of the bills have been passed by the state, but we're anticipating anywhere between 10 and 18 days of early voting per every election or primary we have, which is where we came up with $154,000 based off current bills that are out there. If they only pass 10 days, obviously this budget will go down a little bit. If they pass 18, we're gonna come back and need a little bit more. So we went with 14 days, and we have possibly 3 elections, primaries in the next fiscal year, with the municipal primary in September, the election in November, and then the presidential primary in April of, well, I don't know the schedule yet, but first quarter, second quarter next year. So that's early voting.
Now, if you have early voting, how many employees do you have at the site at one time?
Generally, we're gonna have to staff it like a normal polling location.
Why? I mean, is there gonna be, if they mandate it, we have to do it.
Yeah.
But are they gonna mandate how we man it, or just that we have to do it?
They're probably gonna have some kind of minimum staffing in there. You know, generally, a minimum staffing is you have your moderator, the person in charge, you gotta have the ARVs, your 2 assistant registrars, basically. You have somebody to handle the ballots. You got a ballot clerk or 2, and then sometimes you have a greeter, and then the tabulator tender.
Then we have to eat there.
And then there'll be election day registration at early voting is what they're pushing for too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're looking at least,
So I mean, the bill right now that they're talking about without getting into the number of days, do they talk about?
It
the
does not
manpower?
No, it doesn't talk about manpower, but really to run any voting location, you're gonna need,
You have to have
The
the
staff.
moderator, you have to have one of each party, the ARBs.
Yeah.
You have to have somebody checking in the names.
Hmm.
Possibly they could hand the ballot out. And then you need somebody to man approve.
yeah. So like a municipal election, sometimes it's slower, so we'll like combine a roll at some of the smaller
And there's one
locations.
ballot.
And there's only one ballot type. The bigger, like presidential primary and the presidential years government, we can't do that just because
There's four
too many
ballots.
people and,
Yeah. four
So
ballots.
Matt, so if, for the early voting, regardless of which plan they pick, you have to have every polling station open?
no,
it's
this is
one
one
location.
central, yeah, this is
Okay.
one polling location, which at this point, we're gonna put it up the armory.
Okay.
We're gonna do it up there because we need access to town Wi-Fi and all that, so we talked to Jim, we talked to the mayor, so we were looking at other locations too, but the armory should work. Because we almost had 25 grand in here to rent the location.
Yeah.
For it, because you can't take a school gym for 2 weeks.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
And then on election day, you would have all polls open on a traditional.
And then
election
election day, you would have all polls open, and then you would have election day registration, but
Okay.
it would be the normal
And
time.
this will go right to the Sunday before the Tuesday election.
Yeah. So we'll be like 2 weeks out, almost every day, at least 10 hours, or 8 to 10 hours a day is what the bills are calling for, like 10 to 6
10 to
or,
6, and then 6 to 8 on the last 2 days.
yeah.
So like for the new members, and this happens a lot with new state laws. Hopefully, when we adopt the budget, we're gonna know if we have to do it or not.
Yeah,
And we set a date. So like what's important to us is that we get the tax bills out on time. When you don't send the tax bills out on time, you create problems. Bills are too close together, people can't afford to pay them. So there's like a real fine balance between when the state is gonna tell us what they're gonna do, when we adopt our final budget, and when the tax bills go out, because we have to print the bills and everything else. So it's usually pretty close, but we seem to always come out okay, but it's, I'm gonna just say I don't have 100% confidence in the state legislature.
Yeah, I talked to our 2 state reps and our 2 state senators. I know our 2 state reps are on board for less, like 5 days each, but it looks like 14 is probably gonna be passed up in Hartford. I think both parties in Hartford are on board for funding this to the municipalities in some effort or some level. I don't know if it's gonna be as is. I don't know if it's gonna be forever. I don't know how much it is, so there's a good chance you could put a revenue line item for, I don't know, 100 grand or something like that to offset this. You're probably gonna get some money from the Secretary of State,
Now,
but there's nothing out there to say how much at this point.
Or how
what does SOTS stand for?
So does Secretary of the State,
Oh, Secretary of State.
so does,
So I knew you meant state of Connecticut, but.
yeah, Secretary of the State. So that's the most of our increase here. Unfortunately, our hands are tied on it. We don't have frivolous things in our budget that, we get just for the heck of it, and we don't pay, our starting salary pays $1 more than minimum wage, which is going up for the last time. So we start at 16, and then every position gets $1 more as they take on more responsibility. So the other one, capital items, that's up. There's $1,000 for UPS replacement. Usually you guys move that to IT budget. We put it in our budget at first, and then you guys take $1,000, give it to Jim, and then Jim buys the UPSs, so you might want to move that again this year. Polling place carts. With election voting and everything else going on, we're trying to get more efficient and more secure. We had a little bit extra in capital this year when we bought a nice rolling cart for one of our locations that's keyed, and we just drop everything off in a locked cart now, rather than having it exposed, just, I don't want to say exposed, but out there in the gym where it can more likely,
They're heavy.
yeah, plus the bags for our moderators. So
They're
we're looking,
probably 40, 45 pounds, they end up carrying all the stuff,
Yeah.
which,
So, yeah, you're pretty well set though as far as technology, as I know you did upgrades a couple years ago. So computers and,
Yeah, our computers for early, or for voter checklists are good. We probably have another 3 years left on them at least. You know, we planned for 5 years on them, which is, and we may get more, I don't know. Maybe we'll have to replace 1 or 2 instead of all of them in 3 years. But we're going on year 3 with them, and I know on occasion Jim has used them for other purposes, which is exactly what we said.
yeah,
You know, we only need them for election,
okay.
around election time. You got that, $400, we have a handicap booth at which location?
It's at City.
At City Hill that's broken, so we gotta replace one of our handicap booths.
Lights are on.
That's the price there. My office chair is broken, it wiggles and doesn't stay full up, so I'm hoping to get a new office chair for myself. The ones I was offered were probably in worse condition than the one I have in there now. And then a rack storage system for our voting booths, if we have to store them centrally. Looking to do that, that'd be nice to have. I mean, if you gotta find something, it would be nice, it would help us out, but it's low on the priority list of capital items. Election day payroll, as I mentioned, it is about 20 grand, a little more than 20 grand. Again, we have a 3rd election this year possibly compared to just 2 plus the minimum wage increase. Election supplies, again, 3rd election, so more ballots, more everything we're gonna do. Conference and education, that's up a little bit. Usually Louise and I would only attend like 2 days of the conference each. But the education is becoming more and more important. And that's where the early voting education is gonna be. So we like to attend all 3 days of the conference, and that's twice a year. So that's why that's up a little bit. And then on the back, canvas postage. So we always had $1,200 in what I said, canvas by mail, which is going on right now. We never used that for posts. The posters always got billed when Francine would drop them in the mail, it would get billed to townwide activities. So we don't need that in there. We took the $200 that we use of that to pay for what they call roast is,
It's like National COBRA, they send us the addresses of people that haven't voted for 4 years. And we have to go through, and each person is notified with an inside envelope stamped. So every one that goes out, there were 957 total this year with an inside stamp and an outside stamp. So right there was $1,000 in postage. But I believe when John runs it through, it's put through townwide. So you always get that, you know, $1,000 back. So we took that this year,
How many of those do you get returned back to?
a lot. Because people, you know, either they die, they move, you know, they're no longer living there, they're in a convalescent home, you know, the family will send us and it updates our list. But it's required.
and it's required by state.
I know it's required, if they don't reply back, they get dropped in the rolls, or?
We
For
move,
4 years.
yeah,
they
we
go
move
into
it
the
active.
active and then they
Okay.
get voted.
Yeah.
Unless it's deceased.
Okay.
It's a way, it's a good way to clean up the voter rolls, so, and it's like I say, required. So we kept $200 for that report that we talked about, and we moved that to election supplies, and then we zeroed out because the mailing gets always paid by county-wide activities. And then, as I mentioned, the final year of minimum wage. What's not in this budget? Storage space. We have a lot of equipment down at the event center. Obviously, that's going away. So if the town does not provide us a location, looking for 2 10-by-10 places at U-Haul down on Cross Street would be about $4,000 for the year. So if we don't have a location where we're gonna be able to secure our stuff, we're gonna have that $4,000 in the budget to rent someplace to secure it.
You're in a group with a bunch of other people, so
Oh, I know everybody's in that, yeah.
it's under review.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Matt?
Yeah, the computers that we purchased, like, I think that was 2 or 3 years ago. Did we establish like our recycle period? Or are we just waiting until all of them are ready to be done together? And if it's a gym question, then
It's
that's
a gym
fine.
question.
It
Okay,
would be more, Jim, we budgeted for 5 years, we figured you could get about 5 years out of them. We don't use them too often, but it would be up to Jim in the end, but I don't see any reason why we won't get 3 more elections, you know, years out of them. You know, maybe something breaks in the meantime where we have to replace one, but I don't think we need to start replacing them yet.
Any other questions for Jim? Or for Matt?
just one suggestion. I read this as a negative 154,000. we could avoid using the dashes. I thought it was decreasing by that. And I was,
You get all excited.
he was like, look at that, and I'm like, yeah, that's good, and then I'm like, wait. is that
No, no, that's just a divide,
Oh, it's
yeah,
not good.
I should use the semicolon,
Or brackets.
yeah,
I can use this report.
yeah, I should use the semicolon when I did that, yeah.
Okay.
I wish.
Okay. Anything else for Matt?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I may stay where you guys can be.
Okay, that's all we had for presentations for tonight. Any other questions from anyone here or on Zoom?
Could we just mention that our commission was supposed to be tonight, but we moved it and you have a new calendar that you all emailed and are in your books.
And next week is Public Works, and that is usually a very detailed presentation. There's a lot of parts to that. Okay, no other questions? We'll let.
There's just one question on that. When we get to the capital budget, are we gonna separate,
I did that on the calendar.
you already
That's
did?
been separated and Naugatuck ambulance has been added
Okay,
to the bottom of the budget, meetings.
yeah, so Naugatuck Ambulance, Fire, Police, and Arts Commission will go,
I have to move fire police.
yeah, but I'm just
It will be
saying
in-
that,
Yes,
make sure you find a spot for them.
Okay, good. Any other comments? Then, motion to adjourn?
Motion.
got it. All set, okay.
Tom.
Time is 7:17.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Hi, Jan. I told Janice. Unless it's something controversial or